Wow, Santa came early. He flew into all of our computers and dropped one hell of a show on us last night on the WWE Network. That was such a great little treat, and I thought as a nice early holiday present from GoodMicWork, I'll come up here and actually review something other than a WWE pay-per-view or Raw. And let's talk about the NXT. The developmental program on the WWE Network had what I believe was their third big event on the network. Am I correct? I think they had NXT TakeOver when the WWE Network was launched, and then there was a TakeOver 2, and now this one was NXT TakeOver R Evolution, and it was great. What a great show from top to bottom. It's so cool to watch these kids, perform. This is the future of the WWE. Technically, these guys are all developmental wrestlers, and half of them were putting on 5-star fucking matches. It was absolutely amazing. Loved watching the show. Now, I've mentioned several times that even though I have a semi-successful YouTube channel where I talk to all of you about wrestling on pretty much a weekly basis, I am, for the most part, pretty uneducated when it comes to NXT and the independent circuit and guys outside of the WWE, even TNA, I hardly ever lay my eyes on. And I know a lot of you are thinking that's weird from somebody that's been watching wrestling from the 70s, but I'm just kind of the old school casual observer now. Yes, I'm aware of everything. I know how wrestling works. I don't need to follow this shit from top to bottom. You guys can do that. There's a whole new generation of wrestling fans out there, and I can actually rely on a lot of you to educate me on who some of these guys are. Now, I'm not completely clueless, because WWE Network, I do click on it, several times a day. If there is an NXT show on there, when I happen to click on it, I'll probably leave it on as background noise or something to check out. So I'm not completely clueless on the NXT product or where a lot of these guys came from, but I'm probably not as knowledgeable as some other YouTubers out there might be. So all you're going to get out of me is just my take, my personal opinion of watching a show like this. And I got to say, I loved it. Now, I know that was the general consensus amongst everybody. Everybody has been marking out over the success of this show. And I think it would probably be a huge no-no to criticize the show in any way, shape, or form. It is the overall cool thing to do that you must love NXT. If you don't, you're probably going to be frowned upon by a lot of the IWC smarks. Well, guess what? This is one of those instances where I'm in agreement with them. I like the same shit they do. This was good wrestling, and if you need that break from WWE, what have I been doing in my last several commentaries? What have we been all experiencing on WWE, especially on Raw, through the last few months of this year? It has not been that great. Monday Night Raw has had a lot of us scratching our heads every week. I've been criticizing the hell out of the show every single week on Twitter, kind of just making a joke about the whole thing, because sometimes the WWE just does shit that just doesn't make any sense. And then you take a look at this NXT show and how well-rounded and simple the show was. It's proof positive that 2 writers are better than 35 writers. Their storylines seem to have substance to them. They actually seem to follow through with things and not drop things on a regular fucking basis. Their feuds seem to have intensity and have a little bit of realism to them. I hardly ever watch NXT, but just by watching, the R Evolution show from last night, I felt like I was even a little bit emotionally invested, in the angles and the storylines, because it just had a little bit more of that real feeling to it, and I just think that's because of all of the effort put in by everyone there. It's a fantastic little organization. And it's really interesting how the WWE is training guys now. I'm of the belief, and I'm sure a lot of you are too, that international experience and bouncing around to different territories is very, very beneficial if you're learning to wrestle. And it's nice to see the WWE has brought some of these guys in, like the Kevin Steens or the Kentas or the Prince Devitts, or is it Divot? I don't know how you pronounce it. But some of these guys, are really well known, around the independent circuit and internationally. And for the WWE to bring these guys in, all 3 of which I believe are over 30 years old, is very refreshing and encouraging that the WWE just isn't 1,000,000% focused on growing their own homegrown talent for the future that they can control like a fucking robot. But despite all of that, and despite the WWE's very disturbing goal of building soldiers, in this factory that they are making wrestlers in called NXT, I really like what they're doing. They're basically taking a WWE show, because wrestling is different now. It's sports entertainment. It's a whole different, type of entertainment now. And if you want to work for the WWE, you have a lot more to learn than just going out to the ring in some shitty little high school gym in front of 35 people and wrestling with no lights, no pyro, no timing, no TV to worry about, no nothing. So the WWE has taken their product and shrunk it down about a 20th of the size and put it in a little tiny, training facility. Actually, not tiny at all. It's a magnificent facility down there at Full Sail. And they run all of their shows there. and they still have the same type of lighting setup and camera angles and Titantrons and entrances, and everything is the same. It's just smaller, and it's a really good way, I think, to train these guys for what life is like, on WWE TV and WWE live events, because, there's so much more than just going out to the ring and having a match. That's just part of it. That's actually just a small part of it. What they're doing in NXT, I think, is doing a really good job of preparing these younger guys for when they do come up to the main roster, and the WWE really takes their time, really molding and polishing these people, and I think the developmental system in the WWE is something that really needs to be praised, because none of us have been pleased with anything the WWE has been doing on their main TV shows, but it's still very refreshing, even for WWE haters. You got to admit that it's refreshing to turn on a show like NXT TakeOver and see young wrestlers working hard and working well. Every single match, I think, on the show was good, and a couple of the matches were great. So I think the wrestlers there deserve a ton of credit. The WWE, Triple H, and anybody else that's really the most in control and most invested in NXT, I think they deserve a ton of credit. Everybody does. The whole team down there did a spectacular job, and I loved the show. And like I said, sometimes simple is better. I liked the show because, first of all, it was 2 hours. No need to have this thing 3 fucking hours and overdo it like they do on every single Monday Night Raw. You don't have to load it with a bunch of bullshit and nonsense and skits and comedy and dumb crap. They had a few interviews. They had some things, in between matches here or there, but it wasn't excessive, and it was actually quite entertaining, everything else they did. You combine that with great matches with no commercial breaks so the fans can stay invested in the ride, which is a huge deal. And then you combine that with the perfect pacing of the show. Seemed like everything was timed perfectly. The matches came out pretty much one after another. It kept you interested. You never got bored. All in all, it was a very, very well-produced show, and I think it's better than anything that any of us have seen on Raw or SmackDown, at least in the last 3 months. So why don't we take a quick look at these matches. Now, like I said, I'm not going to get too in-depth with my review here because I am not an NXT scholar. I know very little about this product. I'm just going to give you my casual opinion. First match on the show was Kevin Owens, better known as Kevin Steen, who everybody was very excited about when he signed with the WWE, taking on CJ Parker. This match was good. You can see that the WWE probably has pretty big plans for Kevin Owens. And like I said earlier, it's very encouraging to see that because Kevin Owens, or Kevin Steen, is somebody that I have not seen a lot of. And as a matter of fact, when it comes to any of these guys, like I've said before, if any of you want to put any great Kevin Steen matches that you've seen throughout the years in Ring of Honor or wherever else he's been and you think I should see it, feel free to put a link up on my Facebook page. I'll always take a look at it. I'm very lazy. Sometimes I don't want to Google the history of somebody and learn all about it. So if there's some specific matches and memories and things that he's done prior to coming to NXT that you think I should see, let me see it, because I was thinking to myself, Kevin Steen's somebody that's about 30 years old and he's out of shape. So he must be one hell of a talent for the WWE to take a guy like that who doesn't look like their typical movie star. He doesn't look like Randy Orton. He's never going to have six-pack abs. Has probably never seen a tanning bed in his life. So this guy must be good. They wouldn't sign a guy that looks like he does if he didn't have something to offer. And I love to see that because it's just so nice to see that the WWE just isn't always hell-bent on having those Vince McMahon, tanned body, 6'8", muscle head, movie star looking type guys, which is what Vince and a lot of people in the WWE have had a hard-on for about 30 or 40 years now. So the fact that guys like Kevin Steen are still getting opportunities here in nearly 2015 is very encouraging to see, and I'm glad that the WWE seems like they want to have big plans for him. Hopefully it'll all work out. His match with CJ Parker was very good. I got to see a lot of what Kevin Owens is all about. And how about the botched palm strike? Ouch. Is that a move that CJ Parker normally does? He just basically smashed Kevin Owens right in the face with the palm of his hand. It looked like he broke his nose. Blood everywhere. Motherfucker, that had to hurt like a bitch. And what did Kevin Owens do? He shook it right the fuck off. If there wouldn't have been blood involved, you probably wouldn't even known he was hurt. He's a beast. I'm really excited to see what the WWE does with him. And a guy like him, you would think also, is probably not going to spend a whole lot of time in NXT because he already has a ton of experience. Next up was a match that I found interesting. The Lucha Dragons are the NXT Tag Team Champions. They're taking on what was my very first look at this tag team, the Vaudevillains. I like it. I thought it was a really cool gimmick. I'm surprised they haven't done something like this before. Having two guys come out and pretend that it's a fucking 100 years ago. These guys are out there dressed like the grapplers and the strongmen from the goddamn 1800s or something. So I kind of liked it. I like the black and white entrance. I like one of them using the name Gotch, really cool. So I don't know if this tag team will succeed. I don't know how good either two of these guys are individually. But as far as the gimmick goes, I liked it. I'm surprised, like I said, they haven't tried something like this in the past. They should come out with like an 80s gimmick gimmick, or an 80s tag team where they come out there and they literally think it's 1984 or 1985, you know, fucking wearing Miami Vice t-shirts and goddamn hot pink and shit like that, and leather and a glove. I think something like that could be funny and comical too. So I thought it was an interesting gimmick, a very interesting entrance, and an interesting tag team, but they lost. Lucha Dragons are the NXT champions, and they stayed that way. Very good match. This was also my first look at Baron Corbin. I kind of like him, too. He's a good-sized motherfucker. Great agility, completely capable, maybe would remind you of a young Undertaker. And he made extremely quick work of, I guess, Ty Dillinger, you know, one of their fucking jobbers, that'll probably get his opportunity in months to come, but right now he's fucking jobbing. Got the absolute shit kicked out of him by this big bad Baron Corbin, and then there was a stare down, I guess, when Corbin is leaving with some guy, again, that I'm unfamiliar with. Believe his name was Bull Dempsey. But what I saw out of Corbin was awesome. I would like to see him get pushed. You know, I like his look. You know, he does kind of remind you of an Undertaker or a Vampiro or somebody like that. And he's big and he's agile. But good stuff all around from that guy. I think he has a legitimate chance just based on his work in the ring and his size. You know, he's at least going to get an opportunity. Here's a match I liked. Tag team match. Good feud. Good storyline. This is something that's been going on for a little while between these two teams. And it's the Ascension versus Hideo Itami and Finn Baylor. Now, Baylor, or, you know, Prince Devitt, whatever he was called, came out there in an unbelievable entrance. Has he always done this? Holy shit, that was creepy as fuck. The very first thing I thought of when I saw him coming out there crawling to the ring in that crazy costume, I said, I want to see a Finn Baylor versus Stardust feud. I want to see Stardust in the ring, cutting one of his goofy-ass crazy promos, acting like a complete nut, and then this motherfucker comes out to the ring, and they have a stare down. Holy shit. Talk about a circus. And on top of that, you know, underneath these crazy costumes, these guys are really, really good wrestlers. So when I saw him coming out there like that, Cody Rhodes was the first guy I thought of. But these guys are so good. You know, him and Kenta, to see them in the WWE doing their thing, you know, I really hope they have good futures. I really hope that when they do make it to the main roster, that the WWE doesn't give them a stupid angle or a stupid gimmick or turn them into a joke or anything like that, or put them in a bunny costume or something. I really hope these guys can be as good in WWE as they are in NXT. And Hideo Itami and Finn Baylor got the victory. Now the Ascension, I'm wondering when they're going to come up to the main roster. I thought they've already been overdue for that. When they dropped the NXT tag team titles, I thought to myself, that's it. These guys are headed up to the main roster. They're definitely ready. Divas match, NXT Divas title or women's title, I don't even know what they call it, but Charlotte retained her title against Sasha Banks. Sasha Banks I have not seen before. This is my first look at her. Small little thing, but definitely had a good match. You know, these girls, this is where I can watch women's wrestling. I can watch it in NXT. Because they can actually work, and they're good, and they're given time out there. You know, a lot of people were pissed off that last Monday night on Raw, Charlotte made her Raw debut and lost to Natty Neidhart. And a lot of people were mad, number one, that Charlotte lost, and number two, that the WWE didn't give him hardly any time to work the match. That's the nature of Raw. You're never going to get an NXT quality Divas match on Raw. Look at what Emma and Paige and the type of matches they were having together on NXT months ago. We even seen anything close to that? You know, from the two of them on Raw, it's a completely different environment. And you guys all know I'm not a huge fan of Divas wrestling as it is. So to be able to see these girls work and work well and have good matches on NXT, to me, that's where I can get my women's wrestling fix. You're never going to see anything better than that on Raw or SmackDown, period. Now, before we get to the main event, Roman Reigns also came out and had an interview. You know, he came in front of his NXT audience. He performed for many, many months there. And he let all the fans know of his goal and his desire to be the first ever, you know, NXT guy to win the WWE World Heavyweight title. Now, I don't know how accurate that is. Isn't Daniel Bryan an NXT guy? Or are they talking about when FCW switched over to NXT, which I think was just a couple years ago? But, you know, NXT was around in 2010. Daniel Bryan had the great and powerful Miz mentor him on his track to becoming World Heavyweight Champion. But anyway, doesn't matter. You can tell that the WWE probably is going to put the belt on Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 31. The fact that he won that Superstar of the Year Slammy Award, which I don't give a shit if the Slammies were rigged. A lot of people have really been bitching about that. Oh, the Slammies were rigged. I've got proof of it. Well, of course they're fucking rigged. Is anybody surprised that they are? You can't trust anything the WWE does because they only have their best interests at heart. They don't give a fuck about if they're lying to the fans. Roman Reigns is the guy they want, so Roman Reigns is the guy they're going to get. So they made him Superstar of the Year. The fans didn't vote for shit. But that's fine. I don't dislike Roman Reigns. And it's not like his bloodline is the absolute worst either, so I'm not rooting for this guy to fail in any way, shape, or form. But the WWE, they're making it just a little bit too obvious that Roman is the guy that they want, and I can see how that might get under fans' skin. But hopefully, Roman Reigns will do so well performing that we'll forget all about the WWE's insane pushing of him, and we'll actually enjoy what he does. But we'll have to see on that. He's due to come back basically any time now, and he came out on NXT to let the fans know that he's basically back, and he is on a mission to become the WWE World Heavyweight Champion. And now in the main event, we see NXT Champion Adrian Neville defending against Sami Zayn. Now, the storyline here is that Zayn has had opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. He's been there a long time. He's been unable, although he's been having great matches, he's been unable to become NXT champion. And they're doing the angle, which is a simple one. And like I said earlier, sometimes simplicity is best because you're trying to teach these guys, you know, how to act and how to perform, not just wrestle. So start simple. Start with a storyline like this. This is something we've seen, you know, a few times throughout the course of history. Sami Zayn just can't get over the hump, so he wants one last final opportunity, and if he cannot win the NXT Championship, then he will retire. And the match, wow. What else can we say about it? We kind of knew it was going to be a good match. All the main events they've had so far in their big shows on the WWE Network has been fantastic. I'm glad to see Sami Zayn get his opportunity. Another guy that's been around for a while, you know, just now getting his opportunity in the WWE, very good in the ring. You know, and again, he's a guy that doesn't look like a big star. You know, he doesn't have that 10 out of 10 look that the WWE is looking for. He reminds me more of somebody like Christian, which, come to think of it, a Sami Zayn versus Christian match might actually be pretty good. I wouldn't mind seeing that. But Sami Zayn, you know, his physique, his body type kind of reminds me of a Christian. Plus, he's kind of a high flyer, but man, does he have some great moves. He's pretty smooth, and he's very coordinated, and he rarely botches things. And all of his stuff looks so well done, you know, just almost perfection. That one spot they did where he's on the outside of the ring, and he runs through and drives through the top and middle turnbuckle, lands on Aaron Neville, and gives him like a swinging DDT. Absolutely unbelievable. That's probably one of his signature moves. That's something you don't just come up with on the fly, so he's probably done that before, but it's my first time seeing it, and it was awesome. The match was that typical back and forth. The crowd was so into it. You know, for a small crowd like that, you know, I think back to WCW's old tiny little crowds they used to do when they would rent out the soundstage at Universal Studios and have WCW Saturday Night there. There couldn't have been more than maybe 200 people there. But they were so boring. They were just kind of clapping when they were cued to clap. You know, they weren't invested in anything. These fans, you know, at this NXT shows, they seem in the match themselves. They're very interactive. They're very much a part of the show, much like how ECW used to use the fans in that respect. I think the fans are trained a little bit on what to say and how to act. And of course, you know, fans these days love chanting, "This is awesome," and "Holy shit," and NXT, or the names or the initials of the promotion. Any chance they can get to chant that shit, they do it. So I know chants really don't mean anything, but for the most part, the fans really helped keep this match going because they add so much energy to it. They clap for everything. They show respect to these guys for good spots, for good moves, for taking the fans on a journey, on a ride. They were into it. They were all marking out, and it was just an overall great atmosphere. And Zayn, of course, finally overcomes the obstacle, becomes NXT champion, beats Adrian Neville in a great finishing sequence, which I loved, and everybody comes out to congratulate him. Basically, the entire NXT roster. It was a very emotional moment. Even I was looking at it and, you know, just kind of smiling a little bit because I felt happy for the kid. You can see what this means for him because this is the trend, I'm guessing, that the WWE and the formula they're going to use now. Once a guy becomes NXT champion and has his run, once he drops it, he's off to the main roster. And that first show, it was Bo Dallas, right? He went in as champion, taking on Adrian Neville. He dropped the belt to him, showed up on the main roster just a couple of weeks later. Or he might have even shown up on the main roster. I don't even know. So hopefully this means that Adrian Neville, after maybe a rematch or something, which I'm sure they will have, this might be his permanent call-up to the main roster. I know he's shown up on SmackDown once or twice, maybe even Raw, but to have him on the main roster permanently now could be in the future for Adrian Neville, and I'm happy for him. And what that means for Sami Zayn is now he's got a several-month NXT title reign ahead of him, and when he drops the belt to the next guy, that means he'll be moved up to the main roster. So I'm happy for everybody there. And as if this wonderful tear-jerking celebration wasn't great enough, apparently when the show goes off the air, Kevin Steen attacks Sami Zayn. Fuck yeah. That means they're going to move him right up to the top of the ladder, and maybe these guys are going to have a nice, lengthy program for that NXT championship. I know they have a history on the independent circuit. A lot of fans thought it was awesome to see them together in the ring, hug after Sami had won the NXT title. So after the show, them to swerve us like that and have Kevin Owens attack Sami Zayn was fucking awesome. So basically what that means is even when NXT goes off the air, it still continues to be awesome. I know that Triple H and Vince McMahon's latest favorite thing to say is that there are brass rings out there and you need to go grab them. After the NXT show, Triple H actually tweeted that he was missing a giant box of brass rings. Well, look, that's all fine and good. I understand that these kids have to go out there and get it, but they did. What the fuck do you think they have been doing in NXT? It's a two-way street. Not only do these kids have to work hard and take chances and grab, quote-unquote, the brass ring, but the WWE also has to care enough for their careers to be something. It's not up to just the wrestlers. WWE micromanages the fuck out of every single thing they do. So acting like these wrestlers have the freedom to go out there and impress them is bullshit. They don't have the freedom to do anything. So, you guys take care. I should be back up here after TLC, depending on what happens on the pay-per-view. TLC is 2 days away. If the show is crazy and big shit goes down, I'll come up and do a reaction video immediately following the pay-per-view. If not, I'll just wait until after Monday Night Raw and come up here and talk about all of it. And like I said in my last commentary, as a programming note, my year-end video will be coming around the 28th, 29th, or 30th. Nothing special, just a little, year-end video, year-end tribute to all of you guys. And I also mentioned that my DVD reviews and my Q&As are going to be suspended just until the rest of this year. I'm working on some changes to the channel in 2015, including a new channel series and all of that. And the launch date for that appears to be January 4th of 2015, so mark that date on your calendar. There could be several videos uploaded that day alone, so I think it's going to be a fun next few weeks here on the GoodMicWork channel, transitioning into 2015. And hopefully we'll have a lot more to talk about next week if TLC and Raw turns out to be any good at all. So I will talk to you guys very soon, and I hope all of you have a great weekend. Until next time, peace.